Jurassic pterosaurs. Welcome guys once again to the channel Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we rank, you guessed it, dinosaurs. However, as it is becoming a bit of a regular thing, we're not going to be ranking dinosaurs, but Jurassic pterosaurs. If you remember, I did a Cretaceous pterosaur video like 2 or 3 months ago, I believe, and I did say I was going to do a Jurassic one, but it did take a little bit. And again, I'm not a pterosaur, more a connoisseur as I am of dinosaurs, but especially Jurassic pterosaurs. I'm not very extremely knowledgeable on them. However, I did do my research, and I came out with a list. Hope you like, and I hope you'll enjoy this video again, guys. So, without further ado, Jurassic pterosaurs. I'm going to be starting with ANUROGNATHUS. So I'm going to be starting strong here with one that you've probably heard before, ANUROGNATHUS. This guy is a small pterosaur from Germany. And the actual whole type, like this, the first fossil that we found of ANUROGNATHUS, is actually only visible because it is an impression on an actual slab of rock. So there's a rock, and the actual skeleton or the fossil, I think, got imprinted into the rock. That's how it got fossilized. Yeah, poor guy. Got absolutely plastered on over there. But yeah, the ANUROGNATHUS, starting with the really small and short head. Like that's where it actually the name comes from. The frog head, Anuro, comes with the from frog. The word frog comes from Anuro, not the other way around. Sorry. Gives it the name because I guess the first thing that came to mind was like, it's a frog, but from the top it actually kind of looks like it, so I'll give it to them. It had some pin-like teeth, so little needles for teeth, that actually helped it hunt, eat, and swallow and digest delicious insects that form part of their diet. And ANUROGNATHUS, it is in the same group as other pterosaurs that are characterized for having a longer tail, like a long tail. However, ANUROGNATHUS is the exception to the group, where it has a really short one actually, which helped it to be more, I guess, more maneuverable. God, I'm so dumb. Have more maneuverability in closed spaces, so it actually helped it to hunt much better. With their little 20-inch span, it was actually on the smaller size again. And it had some huge eyes. That's one of the main things of ANUROGNATHUS. It had some huge eyes that were pointing forward. So it was definitely an active hunter. A for ANUROGNATHUS. Yeah, it's in the name. CTENOCHASMA. Now we're going to be moving on. Again, Jurassic. This is going to be in Germany and France. So we're staying in Europe for this, guys. And this all, you might be thinking, oh yeah, there's a lot of these pterosaurs on Europe, specifically from the Jurassic. And then that's because, again, Europe back in the day was a series of more like islands that were interconnected somewhat by some land bridges that would form sometimes. And this would give rise to those to a much more, I guess, coastal habitat that really helped these Jurassic pterosaurs to just flourish, because there was a lot of sea life that needed to be hunted down from the skies. So CTENOCHASMA is one of these guys. So there's 3 species of CTENOCHASMA recognized. It was actually previously was known to be like a gharial, like a crocodile morph, kind of like a gharial, but it was actually formally recognized as a pterosaur in the 70s. And it's very distinguishable because it has numerous, and when I say numerous, I say over 400 long, thin, curved, and closely packed teeth coming out of its bill, of its mouth. It actually helped it a lot in its probable lifestyle that was kind of like a spoonbill. If you've seen spoonbill birds, they have this, again, pretty self-explanatory. Self-explanatory name. It has a spoon-like bill, that it uses to hunt fish by waddling on the water. Kind of moves it around, and it once it senses something like a fish, it'll just close its mouth and just eat it. This formed like a comb and projected like outward from the beak. So, it's pretty cool looking little pterosaur. Again, we're staying on the smaller side, so this guy probably hunted in little ponds around around the beaches and stuff. So, CTENOCHASMA. I'm not gonna lie, it is cool. However, I believe there are cooler ones coming up. So I'm gonna put you in seat here, CTENOCHASMA. DIMORPHODON. Now, I'm gonna be moving on again. DIMORPHODON. Again, this is one of those very popular that you've probably heard of pterosaurs. Yes, this guy again is from the Jurassic, and his name comes from the very distinct characteristic, which is that it had two types of teeth, which is, in its jaws, which is weird for it's very weird among reptiles. But yeah, its diet again with these two types of teeth was very debated. We actually didn't know for a long while, but the most recent studies suggest that it probably ate small vertebrates and some soft-bodied insects or invertebrates, like I don't know, worms or I guess caterpillars, but those weren't around at that time yet. The most infamous and honestly a characteristic thing of DIMORPHODON is its big head. Like, this guy had a bulky skull, 9 inches long. Again, this is a very small pterosaur, so a big skull. It's gonna, you might be thinking, well, how is it gonna fly? I mean, that big ass head, what is it gonna do? However, this skull did have some large openings, like very large openings, which made it much more lighter. These openings, again, these are called fenestrae, and it helped reduce the weight of the skulls. And this is also known from a lot of dinosaurs too, which aided in especially that and losing the weight on the head. But yeah, this guy, even though it had a big head and it was offset by the fenestrae, it probably couldn't fly long distances since its wings, while they were, very long, they weren't that long. And so it probably flew like very like frantically, like this style of flight. I think, in my opinion, I would classify bats as having a frantic style of flying. So I'm gonna say, I'm in my head canon, they fly like bats. So DIMORPHODON, I think this is one of those awesome pterosaurs that, I'm just gonna put in an S here. KRYPTODRAKON. Now, moving on. KRYPTODRAKON is a pterodactyloid. Not only a pterodactyloid, but the basalmost and oldest pterodactyloid. Pterodactyloid being this subgroup in, Pterosauria, which were live in, these guys were in Asia. I know that because I read it, but no. This name of this guy is actually the hidden dragon, KRYPTODRAKON, which is, I'm just gonna say, it's a sick ass name, but it's actually based on the movie Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, which is a movie that they filmed a long time ago, and in the vicinity where they filmed the actual movie is where they've actually found the fossils of KRYPTODRAKON. So it was actually named after the movie, which is pretty cool. A little Easter egg for you there. But this guy lived much more in an inland, in an inland habitat, which is weird because pterodactyloids are mostly known as more coastal pterosaurs. But this being a very old one, the oldest one that we know of, makes us think that, pterodactyloids actually had much more terrestrial origins. So they were more, better aided for an inland like style of life, like probably aided by, trees and all of that to aid in their flight methods. I want to say, oh yeah, their actual wings actually support this because they are much shorter than later pterodactyloids, which again supports the idea that they were more terrestrially, more inland based. But yes, I mean, KRYPTODRAKON, it honestly has the name of an Astarchid, but it's not as dark. So I'm gonna put it. I'm honestly gonna put it in C tier. Oh, the name. Oh, I think the name is gonna push it to B tier. LUSOGNATHUS. Now, gonna be moving on again to Europe. Yes, once again, we are in Europe. And LUSOGNATHUS is from actually the Lourinhã Formation, and probably heard of the Lourinhã Formation because it is kind of like the European counterpart of the Morrison Formation. You know, a little cool there. You know, to live with some very interesting dinosaurs. But yes, this guy. We only have some parts of the upper jaw, some teeth, some cervical vertebrae, so not a ton. However, we do know that is the first pterosaur taxon that was named from Portugal, specifically Portugal, and one of the largest Jurassic pterosaurs at 12 with a 12 feet wingspan. That is pretty big in Jurassic standards. As with all Gnathosaurians, which is the little group that this guy is a part of, their snout is very flat, very strongly flat. Though it is much more elongated, and it had some it was relatively wide, so it was creating kind of like a spatula kind of thing, kind of vibe, you know. Had like little clampers, but yes, aside from that, it had some pretty robust teeth, and you know they have a large distance between each teeth, which lends to the proposal that it is not a filter feeder, because when you have a ton of teeth like that, more closely together, you're probably more of a filter feeder kind of thing, you know, kind of like flamingos. However, this guy had a more piscivorous diet. You know, these coastal pterosaurs definitely love their fish. So, LUSOGNATHUS, do I like it more than, at this point, I'm like, do I put it next to KRYPTODRAKON or do I put it next to ANUROGNATHUS? I don't think I can put it next to ANUROGNATHUS. So I'm going to put it right next to KRYPTODRAKON, probably ahead of it. SCAPHOGNATHUS. Now, moving on, we're going back to Germany again, which I have to ask, why is there so many pterosaurs in Germany specifically? Nothing weird, I'm just asking this question. Why is there so many pterosaurs in Germany? What the heck is this? But I digress. This guy is a small pterosaur, very small, only a 3 feet wingspan. This guy had, you know, tiny, I want to say. And this guy was actually thought to be a species of Rhamphorhyrchus, another guy we're going to be talking about later. But it had a fundamentally different snout shapes. Their teeth were much more horizontally, the other way around, and more vertically oriented teeth instead of horizontally this way. And there are three specimens known from this guy. So we have a pretty good record and evidence that they were definitely not Rhamphorhyrchus, even though they look like, and they're probably very closely related. But one of the cool things about SCAPHOGNATHUS is that comparing their scleral rings, you know, the little rings that were around the eye so it could stay in place. This is a thing that some modern birds and reptiles do have. And exactly, they compared it to modern birds and reptiles, and actually suggests that it had a much more diurnal lifestyle. So it probably spent most of the day in the daylight actively, doing its activities, hunting, mating, doing all that stuff, because it probably niche partitioned with the other nocturnal pterosaurs like CTENOCHASMA or Rhamphorhyrchus, which is pretty awesome. So, SCAPHOGNATHUS, do I want to put it in A tier? It has a little crest too. I kind of want to put it in A tier. Rhamphorhyrchus. Now, this is also one of those very popular small pterosaurs. This is part of the long tail group that I was telling you before. Had a pretty long tail. This is a pterosaur that was less specialized than its peers. It housed a bunch of needle-like teeth that were angled forward. When I say it, that's why before I corrected myself, and instead of being like this, they were actually like this, kind of like oriented forward. And the beak was very curved and sharp, kind of like this. So it was how to, when it closed its mouth, its beak kind of just held out like this. It's, you know, very strange, but also pretty cool because the tip of the beak, the snout, didn't have any teeth either. So this probably indicates that it was a fish eater again. These pterosaurs love their fish. I don't know, these Jurassic pterosaurs, they're allergic to meat or any type of, you know, other carnivorous diet. But yes, we actually know that because some fish contents in cephalopods are known from stomachs in the fossils of Rhamphorhynchus, which, you know, these fossils also preserve not only bones, but it actually had some impressions not only of soft tissue, because it showed some of their wing membranes, so we kind of know like a general idea of what they look like, but also feathers. Yes, pterosaurs did have feathers even back in the Jurassic. And there's this notion that, you know, pycnofibers, you know, little hair-like, but, you know, dinosaurs and pterosaurs had feathers. They differ a little bit, but, you know, they were feathers at the end of the day. We just call them different things to differentiate it, you know, be a little extra, but, you know, the feathers, come on. And as I was saying before, they were probably nocturnal. So, Rhamphorhynchus is honestly one of my favorite pterosaurs, and I'm going to put it in S tier with DIMORPHODON. Actually, I'm going to put it at the top of S tier. Pterodactylus. Come at the end of the tier list with the first named pterosaur and first identified as a flying reptile ever discovered. This guy is mostly from a Bavarian limestone. Again, Germany. Although there are some tentatively other places where it might have been found, other places in Europe and also Africa. So probably had a much more bigger range. But yeah, Pterodactylus is one of those, you know, your grandma probably knows Pterodactylus. This guy was much more of a generalist carnivore, so, you know, probably ate whatever it could find. It's actually kind of small if you compare it to other famous pterosaurs, because, you know, Pterodactylus, you would think it's a big guy, but is honestly, you know, kind of really small, honestly. It's kind of small. But yeah, Pterodactylus, it did have a pretty cool looking crest, you know. It ended right before right in front of the eye. It ended, went all the way to the not all the way to the tip of its snout, but a little before. There are some distinct like clumps of fossils of Pterodactylus, which means that, you know, generations of Pterodactylus, they were very similarly sized, so which probably means that this guy, they probably had a consistent growth, and they probably bred seasonally. We don't know exactly if this guy's had any type of sexual dimorphism, because one of the things with pterosaurs is that, especially the crested ones, have very distinct looking crests, even inside the species. So, which probably points towards you know, sexual dimorphism. But yeah, Pterodactylus, again, if it wasn't aware apparent enough, Pterodactylus is not Pteranodon. Pteranodon is a Cretaceous pterosaur, different from Pterodactylus. Pteranodon actually is much bigger, and it does have the crest that you probably think of when you think of pterosaurs. But yeah, Pterodactylus, I mean, it is very important, and it's the first guy. It's the first one. So just for that, I'm gonna put it in A tier. Now this is the tier list, guys. Jurassic pterosaurs. I finally did it. Probably been thinking like, where the frick is this Jurassic pterosaur? He made the other one like a long time ago, but yeah, here it is. Let me know, guys, in the comments, please. What do you think of the tier list? What would you change? What is your favorite Jurassic pterosaur? Which Jurassic pterosaur did I forget? Because I obviously forgot some. And if you want a part 2 of this, it's gonna be hard. It's not a ton of Jurassic pterosaurs as there are a ton of Cretaceous pterosaurs, for example. But yes, this is gonna be the tier list, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video; it helps a lot. Subscribe; it helps even more. So, I'm gonna see you in the next video, guys. Thank you so much.